Hey guys, welcome back to the sixth episode of Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Honesty, back with Cannon Torres, one of the up-and-coming recruiting guys in the Texas A&M Zeitgeist. And as usual, we're going to be starting talking about new Texas A&M head basketball coach Bucky McMillan, who has continued to be one of the hottest new coaches on in the transfer portal right now, adding two more players last week. To start, one of them, me and Cannon at the end of our show actually talked about one of them, Federico, the Texas Tech transfer forward, who was actually attending the baseball game last week when they played the midweek matchup against Lamar. Saw him. He was with Bucky. Very good sign, obviously, because we had seen that every player through the portal that has gone to either a game with McMillan or has taken a campus visit, he has signed with the team outside of Duke Miles, who we will say before we get into it, was let go of his NIL agreement with Texas A&M. He's now a college free agent again. What goes behind that? Maybe you have some insight on that. It was a little confusing. But anyways, get back. They landed Federico. And right after that, they landed one of the better players in the portal who has superstar potential in former Kansas and Alabama shooting guard Rylan Griffin, who, as we all those of us who follow basketball and cover college basketball know, he helped Alabama a couple of years ago get to the Final Four, one of the best shooters in the SEC. Kind of had a downward spiral a little bit with Kansas. We kind of saw that with one of A&M's other transfer portal additions, Zach Clements, who, as I told you, one of my editors at USA Today, obviously a Kansas grad, and right after Clements was acquired, he said, "Man, this kid's got very, very talented." And you look at the stats where he was averaging barely 2 points a game, and you're thinking, well, what happened there? Well, sometimes you're just not a good fit. Griffin with Kansas just didn't have the best year, but still one of the best players in the country and somebody who could be a program changer for you next season, especially with the other 7 additions in the portal. So, Cannon, obviously you cover this closer than anybody in terms of recruiting, transfer portal additions, et cetera. What do you think of these 2 new additions, and how do you think this is going to spur more momentum going forward when, right now, obviously McMillan wants to add probably a couple more pieces before the 2025 season?
Yeah, so we talked last week about Federico visiting Lamar during the Lamar baseball game. Really, really good sight to see. And as you said, Bucky's pretty much, I believe, either a perfect 8 for 8 or 8 for 9 with the relinquishing of Duke Miles from his NLI. But Federico, former Pitt and now Texas Tech center transfer. I mean, you saw what Texas Tech did in this current NCAA just this past one, where Federico was on that floor for them, providing as much as he could on the defensive end. And really, when he was back at Pitt in the ACC, he finished I believe top 10 in offensive rebounds, block percentage, defensive plus minus, a whole lot of these advanced stats that you really do like to see in this college world where your paint, your defending. I mean, we saw it with A&M this past year where they wanted to make sure, hey, you could not come in the paint whatsoever. And this new age moving forward with under Bucky McMillan, Federico is able to provide kind of that level of rim protection as a potential starting center for this team.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's, we started to kind of piece together what they have, and it started with the Jakari Lanes and all those type of very quick shooting guards and offensive threats who are maybe a little undersized, but guys who, as we talked about with Florida, obviously last season, getting all these underrated guys from smaller schools that are great scorers. You just didn't know because of their size and because how they fit against bigger players in the SEC. Well, it worked out pretty seamlessly. And guys like Jakari Lane, for example, played very well against bigger competition when he was at North Alabama. But you kind of know that during McMillan's time at Samford, they play this very high-paced, very quick system that, you have to be elite scorers and you have to score a lot because that tempo you're trying to match with other teams. And you're going to, especially at the smaller school level, a lot of them do play similar systems, because they can't play defense the same way. They just don't have the size inside. So now if you have that combination of those type of guards that are elite scorers, and you have a guy like Federico who has starting level talent that during his time with Texas Tech, I saw a lot of Texas Tech reporters and fans and stuff really sad that he left because they knew that, well, this guy could have started for us. It's just he didn't because of the guys in front of him. But with A&M, I think they were recruiting him as a starter, a guy who can run with this system. He's very tall. He's very athletic. He's a fantastic rebounder, great defender, and he can run the floor. And he's not the spacer that, like other big men like Clements and I'm kind of spacing right now on the Texas former Texas board. Vincent, yeah, who can shoot the three, who can, do those things that McMillan wants his big men to do. But inside, when you need an offensive rebound, when you need a tip in, when you need a guy that's going to give you those plus minutes in the paint, he's perfect at that. And it's just a perfect fit. I mean, I think that's been the trend, right? Every guy they've gotten has been a perfect fit for the system. There really hasn't been a player so far. I mean, you can say that with Clements, right? Because he's the lowest scorer out of everybody they've gotten. But at the same time, when you look at his high school tape, you think, well, he maybe should have been playing for someone like McMillan all along. He was just a 4-star recruit, and obviously he would pick to go play for Kansas because it's Kansas. There's a lot of these guys, and in the world of recruiting, we kind of see how it's changing that it's kind of like college admissions for general just citizens, right? Like sometimes they want to go to this very big prestigious school because maybe their parents went there, they have expectations. Sometimes it's not a good fit, and they go to maybe a state school or something else, and it's a perfect fit. They find a program for them, they find a career for them, and they flourish for whatever they do. I was one of those people who, when I was choosing colleges about what I wanted to do, I wanted to work in a media sports type of position, and the school I chose was the perfect fit for that. And obviously now I'm in the industry I'm in. But at the same time, with players, I think a lot of them, when they're really, really good high school players and they're told how elite they are, some of them go with those bigger schools because they think, well, I'll find my way. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So we're seeing a lot of that with these guys coming to Texas A&M, knowing, Texas A&M is a program that isn't a blue blood or anything like that, but it's in the SEC. There's a lot of money attached to it. There's a lot of excitement now attached to it. And I'm going to be able to play a lot of minutes now because, look, it's one of those rosters where you're going to have to, because they just don't have, returning veterans that equaled what, Buzz Williams had in his last season with A&M last year. And so when you come into that, well, I'm not going to play a ton because these guys are in front of me. Now it's anybody's game, right? There's only a couple guaranteed starters on this roster. So with a guy like Federico, yeah, he looks like a starter. But again, if they hire another big man, if they acquire another big man and maybe he looks more polished, then he could be a rotation. We just don't know right now, right? So moving on to obviously Rylan Griffin, who's the other big name. And that was somebody who you said on the show, and I don't know if that was breaking or not, maybe it was. I had heard some rumblings about it. I didn't know if any of it was true, actually, that he had visited Texas A&M. It was very quiet. We didn't really know about it a ton. And because Nate Oates, Alabama's head coach, who obviously coached Griffin during his time there, was all in on getting him back to Tuscaloosa. And that was something where, if you're an A&M fan or if you're one of us, it's kind of like, well, that's kind of hard to out-recruit Nate Oates based on what he's done recently, especially in the tournament. But again, McMillan brought him to campus. He basically sold him on what the future looked like. And, we've already come to that conclusion that if he's doing that and he's getting that type of player, obviously he committed, I believe it was last Thursday night. Yeah, last Thursday night. It was kind of a late night drop. And I'll be honest, I know I'm supposed to have all this inside knowledge about this kind of stuff, but sometimes it gets past me. And I was actually surprised by that. I'd heard rumblings about it, but they did a really good job. I'll give this program credit. I actually like it because inside information is sometimes overrated because sometimes you're fed crap and sometimes you're fed accuracy. But good for them for kind of keeping it quiet and telling us, look, you can trust us to get this done. And by God, they did. I mean, I'll say this. That was the one player, and this is including Mackenzie Macombo, that I didn't know if A&M had a chance because Alabama was coming after him and basically telling him, look, we're just going to put you back in the lineup and we're going to hope that you improve back to your form when you were averaging 11 points a game and shooting nearly 40% from three. But he chose A&M because I think he personally believes, you know what, maybe I'll regain my play with this system, this coach who is young, who I can talk to, who I can assimilate to, and a lot of talented guys around me. Because I think he, I think a lot of these players, give him credit, a lot of us are basketball junkies. We watch a lot of smaller school basketball and just pretty much everybody who's on during the basketball season. But I think these guys are the same way. They love basketball. If you're playing in college, you love basketball, right? So they a lot of them know who these players are. So they've been watching them, and and it was kind of like Florida, right? When Florida assembled that team, I think those guys are all watching each other, going, "Man, that'd be great to play with him one day, right?" And who knows? Griffin may have seen guys like Macabo or guys like Jakari Lane or others, and going, "Man, that'd be fun to play with them." Now I get to actually do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, we saw all these things go on, but maybe it's time for me to, and I don't know exactly where the headspace was for him or how his agent was talking back and forth with A&M specifically, but it's at that point where maybe I didn't find my way at these certain schools and in these certain positions, but you saw what he did at Alabama. I mean, he shot nearly in that NCAA tournament run 2 years ago, he shot nearly 50% from three.
Mhm.
Like, he elevated his game so much that he became this hot commodity in the portal. And I was honestly a little surprised when he did enter that first time from Alabama. I thought he was going to be able to come in and kind of take over, because we saw Holloway Holloway come in as well. It's like, hey, maybe with these guys, you still have this chance to, elevate your game. So when he first went to Kansas, it was a little bit weird for me at the time. And I said, well, good on Kansas for getting him. But when he went into the portal this year, I was like, okay, this guy is a Texas native. What's kind of story with him? And we didn't really hear a lot for the first month, right? There was really nothing on Rylan Griffin besides, oh, he's mulling over offers and options and what he kind of wants to do. And when we had finally heard that he had secretly taken a visit, I mean, the staff did really, really well to keep that under wraps, taking a visit here. And it was kind of projected a little bit more that he was taking a return visit back to Alabama after his little visit down here to College Station. So it was kind of that back and forth you said of like, oh, maybe he's just going to go back to Alabama. But Alabama at that time was recruiting Cedric Coward really, really hard. And Duke ends up winning out there. So the whole thought process of, hey, Rylan Griffin is just going to go back to Alabama. It's kind of this, all right, it's a gimme at this point. But seeing Bucky McMillan and his staff kind of get this one done a couple days after, people were like, okay, why hasn't he kind of committed yet to Alabama? It's kind of his statement, hey, put a pin in it. This is where we made a statement now, even after all these acquisitions already in the portal, where you're building your team up from scratch. I mean, you still have 6 spots left, but with the players you've already brought in, you're kind of seeing exactly how he wants to build this team. And Rylan Griffin is exactly the type of player you want for this team. I mean, this guy, you said it yourself, he can shoot the lights out. Shot just under 40% from three in that Alabama on that Alabama team. I mean, basically 12 points per game. And we just saw him as more of an SEC riser. I mean, he had 24 points against like a Kentucky team, a 25 or something against Missouri.
Oh yeah.
This guy is an actual microwave. And it's exactly what Bucky McMillan is trying to do with his team is, hey, we want to run, we want to shoot, we want to get low in that defensive stance to pick off these passing lanes and run with it. So it was really, really good to get the news. Hey, he's committing. Here is Bucky McMillan,
And he signed. And so for the people, I remember I was talking to my writers, and it happened yesterday when they always put that out, like, he's signed. It's like sometime, and Duke Miles is one of those guys, right? We'll get to that actually right now. So Duke Miles, obviously, did you find that surprising? Because I'm going to be honest, out of all my years kind of covering, especially with Aggie football, with these recruits, these flips, and some of these commits, I think a lot of them are very lukewarm when they do it, and it's usually about, especially for football in Texas, after Texas and Oklahoma got in the SEC, we kind of knew, and we kind of know now, like who A&M's targeting, obviously, and then what guys, if they do commit early in the process, are going to stay committed. Others were kind of like, well, don't trust that this is going to continue on. And that's really just the region, because Texas is obviously so freaking big. And some teams dominate certain regions of the state. But with basketball, it's kind of funny because we didn't deal with this a lot with Buzz Williams, right? The guys he was getting each year in the offseason, and especially last year when he got Pharrell Payne and CJ Wilcher, I wasn't shocked at all. I was like, okay, well, need Buzz Williams type of guys, right? Program, leadership, all those type of things. Well, he wasn't just picking players based on talent level, and Bucky McMillan doesn't do that either. He's picking guys based on talent level and system fit. And yes, it's good to get guys that have leadership qualities in locker room, everything like that. But Duke Miles is one of those very interesting guys. When he did commit to A&M, I was kind of like, okay, well, hopefully he signs and this kind of goes through, because you see that he was committed to Virginia, and then he was committed here, and he was committed here, and he played at Oklahoma. And it's like, well, I didn't know if he was going to just make his mind up right away with A&M. I think that he kind of saw A&M as a great opportunity. Like, obviously, we're just talking about that with someone like Griffin, who probably saw the roster and went outside of the system. Man, I can play with this guy and this guy. He's so good at this. He's so good at this. That'd be great. I'm a great fit. And I think that when he, because I think these players do keep up with all of us of saying, hey, they got a prediction to land this guy, and I think they see these articles. And I know for one, there are certain coaches who've seen my articles because they start talking about certain things, which I just find hilarious, because I'm like, okay, well, go ahead and reference me for that. But he probably saw that Griffin, again, has superstar type of potential in this system. Like you just said, like a run and gun shooter, someone who, because of his length, because of his shooting, his elite shooting ability when he gets hot, someone who's kind of a rhythm guy. Was there a place for Miles after that, right? Because I don't think Miles saw himself as a come off the bench, give you some adequate minutes, maybe be a six-man type, because Holloway is more of that six-man type of player for McMillan, obviously was at Stanford. And maybe that was it. Maybe that really kind of sold it of, I don't know now, because I think Griffin's probably going to not eat my lunch, but he's probably going to come in motivated after his last season with Kansas, going, I'm much better than this. I'm going to win this job. And I think Miles, who is a very good player, obviously somebody who averaged about almost 18 points a game with Oklahoma a couple seasons ago, like Griffin, his scoring average went down. I think he was averaging 99 points, but still shooting a high percentage from the field. But I think it's one of those situations where he just saw the writing on the wall and said, sayonara, I'm going to go find somewhere where I can start right away next season.
Yeah, maybe it was that they were just keeping up with what A&M was doing at that time. But I'm not exactly sure it was all Rylan Griffin. Maybe it was the acquisitions of maybe a Marcus Hill. Maybe it was trying to see exactly where he fit into the system. And to be honest, I didn't see him as not a starter as of right now, even with 6 spots left, or 5 spots at that time. But whatever the case was, he losing out on Duke Miles staying here in College Station is big, regardless of how people want to put it. I mean, the guy is very, very familiar with playing against Bucky. Bucky has tried to get him more than once to play with him, and kind of it shows, hey, maybe he does go to somewhere else and does get that starting role that he was reportedly wanting this entire time. But at the end of the day, it just sucks to see, as A&M fans have made it known across either social media or just their conversations back and forth with people. Now, how does A&M go on from here? I mean, there have been people, and I'm sure people on social media have seen, hey, they've reached out to this person. I know I've put out a couple of people so far. As to what extent, it's still unknown yet. We're still kind of getting reports in on how much they're actually recruiting these guys. If it was just, hey, we just reached out to someone. But the important thing to know is, regardless if A&M has reached out to someone and that person wants to come to A&M, the fact of the matter is it has to be a fit. That player has to be a fit for A&M to want. And that's something that has kind of gotten a little mucked up and now in this NIL transfer palooza, we'll call it. And I don't know, your thoughts on how this entire thing kind of went down, because I think it was kind of, to Duke Miles' credit, it was kind of handled really well. I mean, just say, hey, just requesting out of his NLI, posting it on social media. All right. Just at least that. And then now you're done.
No, I agree with you. I think it was respectful. I know I was, I'm kidding sometimes on here, but no, I do think it was a loss. I mean, because when you do get a player, and especially someone who's so familiar with McMillan and how he plays, it was a slam dunk acquirement. It was somebody who was going to come in here immediately and make a pretty big impact. Because I think that we always look at scoring and average. I know this for a fact that there are certain analysts who literally, when it comes to basketball, especially if they're not big basketball people, it's just, well, what was his field goal percentage? That's everything. Like, if he's a shooter, shoot below 40%, I don't want him then. It's like, okay, well, guys had dips in production because of certain just things going on. I will let you name the USC guard that they reached out to. So, what's his name? Cannon?
Yeah, Desmond Claude. You're good.
And I just wanted you to say that because, I don't want to hog all the space on here. But that's a player. Again, Desmond is a player that is getting a lot of hype. And again, someone who shot nearly 50% from the field last season. One of the best scorers, led USC in scoring and assists last season. And we had heard that outside of A&M, Kentucky, Florida was out. I think Florida pulled out.
Florida is not fully out.
They're not fully out yet. See, I think it's changing every day, but I think every blue book program on the planet right now that needs guards is going after him. And I will say this. I wrote an article about it last night. I kind of referenced that what's impressive about this is that McMillan, unlike Buzz Williams, outside of what he's doing at Maryland, I don't even want to get into that right now because, I mean, if he starts landing every 5-star on the planet, then I don't know. I don't get it. But
that's a different story.
Yeah, it's it's a different podcast. But
yeah,
mainly it is encouraging because when you have players like that, there are certain coaches who get scared out of reaching out. They kind of think, well, why would I even waste my time because this school's in and they're not even going to look at me. That's not the case now because I think when he got someone like Rylan Griffin, who I think a lot of people who didn't see McMillan as landing all these great players this season, he thought they really did. And I mean, I was one of them who said, you got to prove it, right? You could either get a patchwork roster and go into 2025 hoping to get, 15 wins or something. That was really the worst case, I guess. But those expectations are just risen completely. And at the same time, when you do go out and get a Rylan Griffin and you start to or you continue to reach out to these elite players who, like the Kentuckys of the world, are reaching out to, it just means that McMillan is extremely confident in what he's doing here. He's extremely confident where, basically this program can be in the next 2-3 seasons. I mean, honestly, it's all projections, right? That's what it is right now, because I think a lot of people are obviously excited about the 2025 season. They think, well, man, it's going to be fun. These guys are going to score a lot of points and they're going to play exciting press defense. And, we're going to want to go to every home game now because it's not buzzball anymore. We sit there and A&M hasn't scored in 10 minutes and we're going, okay, do something, it's like the meme, do something, and that's what it was. And, outside of a couple games when they beat Auburn, that was exciting and A&M was scoring a lot of points. You could just tell how excited the crowd was going to get. That's the positives, right? But like what we're talking about now is building towards the 26 season, building towards the 2027 season, where if you can acquire guys like this in the portal and continue to, and we haven't gotten to recruiting yet, you probably have even more to say on that with the high school guys they have been offering. It's just a completely different program under McMillan, and it's going to be much more important for Texas A&M sports overall because I'm going to be honest, until his hire, I mean, yes, Buzz Williams took them to 3 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances, but I always felt like football, baseball, basketball. That's how it was. Sometimes baseball is number one until, they were losing at the beginning. Now it's kind of tied to football because they're winning again. But that's just A&M right now, right? But I'm telling you, I personally love covering right now what's going on with the basketball program. I just love the moxie of this guy, the staff he's put together. And like I said, I mean, we're going to get a little off topic here, but reaching out to a player like that is just a great step forward because you're going to start landing guys like that. And you're going to start, all the other blue bloods are going to look at you and go, oh crap, now we have to compete with A&M in the transfer portal. Well, completely. The SEC has changed now because I'm going to be honest, I think that everybody saw A&M under Buzz Williams as like that try-hard team that played really good defense and rebounded well. And they got guys like Henry Coleman, who was a hard worker and a great fantastic representative of the university, and Anderson Garcia, and then obviously Wade Taylor breaking the scoring record. It was like, good job, guys. That's awesome. It wasn't like we feared A&M. There was never a fear. Now, I think A&M can be feared. I do think that because I think McMillan is that type. He's 41 years old. He's only 10 years older than me, guys. I mean, he's not an old man, right? He's not like 57 and on to his 5th coaching job and kind of like, well, let's do our best, because I think there are coaches like that. He's hungry and he's going to take this opportunity and run with it.
Yeah, he's a breath of fresh air, to say the least. I mean, the fact that we are finally starting to see, at least through social media, that Bucky and his staff are at least, hey, we have a loaded gun and we're trying to use it, rather than, hey, we just see the loaded gun and that side holster there. I use that analogy a lot when it comes to not taking your shot on these transfer targets in this NIL era already. Is like, everybody has heard the stuff before where it's, oh, A&M has all these deep pockets. Oh, they're only paying for players. And we didn't really see that a lot with Buzz, at least not on the front side. And who knows how much or to what extent they were actually using it in Buzz Williams' entire tenure here. But to see McMillan and his staff go out and take these shots at these exceptional players, and we've seen it now where Rylan Griffin, Mackenzie Mbako, all these players, to where you want to take these shots. And like you said it yourself, now A&M is another one of these teams in the game, with Kentucky, with Florida, all inquiring about these exceptional players. It's a breath of fresh air. That's legitimately what it is. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and again, it's all about fan excitement, and that was the thing. I think, again, Trev Alberts gets a lot of crap from the fan base for, I don't know, various reasons. They got their reasons, I guess. But he came in with a business mindset, and that's the thing. It's like efficiency, right? It's kind of like some of the people when he was kind of cutting down on some of the employees and stuff like that, and everybody had their own opinions about that. But he came in to clean things up, and I think when he heard that Buzz Williams was interested in the Maryland job, and again, he knows before we do that he's just putting out feelers, going, you know what, I don't want to rebuild here. I'm going to go to Maryland and bring these guys with me and then put together a team, and then we're going to make it to the tournament next year, and I'm going to coast and probably retire there and be done, right? That's where Buzz Williams is right now. Because, and again, there's part of me that doesn't blame him for that, because I remember the very lean years of A&M when he came in. He basically had nothing to work with. He had to rebuild the entire team, the entire program, and get fans interested again, because I love Billy Kennedy, I really do, but he kind of put this program in a bad position just when he left, and it wasn't all his fault. It was just how it was. But yeah, you could have gone the route of hiring another older coach. It was kind of like the baseball hire, right? Because, we can get to that, but Mike Early was a risk, and still is to this point. But he was young. He's been with the team. It was about keeping the players on the roster. There's a lot of that, but taking a chance on younger guys who understand analytics, who understand recruiting in this day and age, who understand all those aspects that you basically need to be an expert on to build a team now and have a successful team. That's why you hire somebody like Bucky McMillan, and that's where I'm telling you, it's just one of those things where you can't not be excited about what this guy's going to do, no matter who he gets. The fact that he has built a team that went from, I don't know if this team's going to win 14, 15, 16 games next season too. I think this team can contend for an NCAA tournament spot. And there are national people saying that. It's not just me. National people are saying, you know what? He's got some stars on this roster now. He didn't have just guys. He didn't have – I remember – we'll end it here. But I remember when he did get hired, the entire rumor that everybody was going with was he's just going to, add the entire Samford team.
Yeah.
That's going to be the roster. He has one player from Samford. So that's the college basketball realm right now. That's what you're not going to get every player from your previous team because they're getting offers other places. Obviously, the guy who was their second top scorer last season went to USC, probably because of NIL and probably because he's getting an immediate starting position. Wasn't guaranteed with A&M. I'm gonna be honest. So it's a great situation. Ken, we're going to keep obviously talking about this in the coming weeks on this show. So we'll end that here today. We're going to switch to baseball. Obviously, we want to get into that. The game tonight was canceled against Houston, which kind of sucks because I really wanted to see Houston play in those baby blue uniforms.
I know. They look awesome.
That's one thing I was looking forward to today. I was like,
they look so awesome, don't they?
But the good news is for those who don't understand how RPI works, if they would have played that game and won or lost, their RPI would have gone down, which is the dumbest thing on the planet. I still don't get it. I mean, it's very damaging for teams like near the postseason because it's like, oh, you beat, no name 14-5, but you were 35 in the RPI. Now you're 57. Sorry. You better go win your SEC games. I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyways, this team is back in the postseason conversation officially. Basically, coming off of their sweep against Texas, which you and I both talked about briefly last week of saying, look, they got swept, but you can take good things from every game, right? You can take starting pitching was fantastic. Both Ryan Prager and Justin Lampkin were great on the mound. Weston Moss, who we did find out was sick, dealing with some issues, had a very bad showing, probably his worst of his career, where he just was not ready to go. Obviously gave up a couple runs in that final game, which they lost which they lost in Game 3 on that Saturday or Sunday, I forget. But we went into the week basically thinking, okay, you got to do the math now, right? They need 13 wins in SEC play to make it back to the postseason. Everybody was saying that. Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball was the main guy saying that. Like, look, if you get 13 wins based on who you've beaten in conference play, you're probably a shoo-in as a 3 or possibly 2 seed. Well, we were doing the math, and LSU, who came to town last weekend, ranked number 2, one of the best teams in the country. A lot of people were saying they're probably going to be the number 2 overall national seed, right below Texas in the NCAA tournament. It looked like a very tough task, right? And after A&M gets swept, you're kind of like, where's their mindset? That's what we focused on last week. Where's this team's mindset? Well, obviously they were unfettered, and that pitching staff was not bothered because you went into a doubleheader on Saturday because of bad weather that Friday. And they just, I'm going to be honest, like Prager had his best outing all season. He went 7 innings, gave up 1 run. It was a solo run from LSU's best hitter, which, look, that happens. But at the same time, I remember I actually caught the end of that game because of I was actually moving that weekend, as you know. And I was kind of looking back, and I was like, okay, it's 1-1. Started watching it. I was like, okay, they're in a good position, right? They can, if they can get a couple hits and just get 1 run in. They ended up winning 3-1 off of a drop ball because of the wind, which was, I think it was Terrence Keel's RBI.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fortuitous, but again, a win is a win. You got number 1. Okay, you just need 1, right? You just need 1 against LSU.
Just 1.
Yeah. You go into Saturday night. Obviously, it's a doubleheader. Anthony Ianson LSU's pitcher.
My goodness.
I'm actually watching my dad.
I need to stop attending these games. I went to the second game. Thankfully, I was handed a ticket on a silver platter. I went to this, and to be honest, I said I am doing no good here because
the Aggies today curse too. Yeah, right.
It's probably me with baseball because oh my goodness, Anthony Ianson,
I think it's Ianson.
He only allowing 3 hits and striking out 14 Aggie batters is insanity.
I'm going to be honest. That's what I was going to get to because I don't think you're bad luck. I think just when you have pitching performances like that, because I was sitting there. I mean, look, baseball is my favorite sport personally. I love the game. And so when I see performances like that, I can't not just be like, congratulations. Like that was dominant. And I think A&M was the same way. They were mad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, look, you're probably not going to see that tomorrow, right? Because LSU, we knew their starting pitching lineup was kind of like good, very good, and then one of the best closers.
Exactly.
Which we're going to get to that now. So A&M lost game 2, 2-1. Obviously, kind of a heartbreaker because they had chances in that game to get guys across. They were stranding runners again. We go into Sunday's finale, and I'm going to be honest. One of the best games I've seen, and one of the games that I believe could be a turning point for this team if they do make the tournament. Because we had been talking about, and I personally have been talking about the lack of clutch hitting in gotta-have-it situations. Like, that's the thing. I don't care what you do throughout the game. I don't care if you're, striking out. And we can get to Jace Levelette. Obviously, he's been, he's struck out. I think now the percentage is almost 22% of his at-bats. It's been pretty bad this season. But again, the Texas said it, right? I didn't say it. I actually went the other way with an article I wrote with his reasons, and that's the great thing about this media sphere. We can disagree.
Yeah.
I believe it was either Billy Lucci or somebody else who on Texas Live basically said, well, if you got to have it situations, Jace Levelette and Caden Sorrell are your guys. Ironically, that's what happened. I said Ben Royo and Caden Sorrell, and to be honest, Ben Royo was a big part of that too. He's been excellent. He's been one of their best players. But you are down, I believe it's 4-2, correct?
I believe, we went into the middle of the 4th, I believe, down 2-0 by like a double from Hernandez, and then
it was an RBI by Terrence Keel, and there was a solo home run by Caden Kent.
It was like a pair of walks for Royo, Cat, and then Keel hit a single, I believe, and that sent.
So I think we're 4-2 going into the 6th. And that's when Jace Levelette, who I think he was over throughout the game, got that infield single to third. I mean, and again, if you want to know, I actually wrote about this today. Like, Jace Levelette is still projected as a top 10 pick in the MLB draft. Like, a lot of people are looking at his average going, well, he's only hitting 276 now, and he's been striking out. Well, that play right there, outrunning the throw. Again, he hit a dribbler to third base. And that 6-6, all that frame, outran that throw. And I was even watching him going, okay, there's a reason every scout in America going, the strikeouts don't bother me as much because he can do that. And if he gets his groove back, he's the most powerful hitter in the country right now.
I'll tell you what, I mean, if Elko's looking for a big-bodied wide receiver, I think we know where to go.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. I remember the LeBron James thing throughout my entire teenagehood of LeBron James could play in the NFL. Maybe Jason Levelette the same way. He scored Gavin Cash from third, who actually Gavin Cash, another guy, did very well in that game, kind of showed up when he has really showed up most of the season. Been out of the lineup due to injury, came back. Obviously, Blake Binderup has been trading starts at first. He actually got a hit. He got to third base. Jace Levelette, with I believe 2 outs, got him home, making it 4-3. And you're kind of sitting there, and I'm like, they've been so bad today. And their best LSU brought in their best closer. Goodbye, Jay Johnson. Very smart move going, look, they're not going to hit our guy. They haven't been able to hit most of our guys, so they're not going to hit our best guy. Well, again, when you have Caden Sorrell up there, who, in my opinion, I think a lot of people's opinion, is probably the number 1 pick in that 26 draft. This guy is the most clutch hitter on the team. He did not have a good weekend. That's the thing.
No,
Jason
he
had a
did
bad
not.
weekend, but Caden's had a horrible weekend too. We just maybe didn't give it a lot of thought because he was so good against even Texas. He kept them in those games for the most part, and he's been good throughout his return. But him and I believe Carter Carroll's did the math on that. I think they were like 2 for 22.
Yep.
Going into that.
2 for 21 or 2 for 22 over the weekend is.
Yeah.
Oh.
And again, Jace Lavalette gets that RBI. Caden Sorrell walks up the plate, waits on his pitch, and absolutely destroys. I believe it's an inside fastball, which I don't know why he was throwing that.
Inside fastball.
Destroyed it. I mean, I was sitting there, I'm going, that's a home run. That's a home run. I was like, it can't be because this is A&M and it's going to drop and then it's going to go, 3 outs. Okay.
At first, I did think that there was a chance it would just drop, but it was gone.
It was gone. And I loved I loved the various broadcasts. I think it was Andrew Monaco who did the best for it. He was like, Caden Sorrell, it's gone. And I mean, you could just tell it was kind of drifting. You saw the LSU outfielders and the image of I'm losing the name of their closer right now. The image of him watching that ball go, it's like, dude, it's like, yeah. I had to throw that ball to that guy. 6'3", Weston Moss, again, that's why I waited to the end of this to mention him, was absolutely, I mean, just balling out throughout the end of that game, throughout the last 2 frames. He was finally healthy. Head coach Mike Early gets a lot of credit for that because he had Prager for 7 innings, brought Moss in for, I think, maybe an inning in game 1, took him out immediately, knowing that he probably needed him for the final game. And there you go. That's what you get. That's how you win. And you're not going to get clutch hits like that every game from Caden Sorrell at that moment. But at the same time, that's the type of situation that I think this is why if A&M can sweep Missouri this weekend, maybe get a win against Georgia, I don't know if they're going to need it. You get in the postseason as a 2 or possibly 3 seed. If I'm any other team, especially the number 1 seed in that regional, do I want to play this A&M team who, to be honest, is more talented than you, who has momentum, who has experience? And these guys were in the College World Series finals last season, pretty much all of them. You got guys like Wyatt Hensler, who will be as hungry as ever to get there and prove himself. And if this is just my opinion, if Lavalette is struggling like this right now, do we think it's going to continue in the postseason? I don't know. Because I'd actually, if I was an A&M fan or anybody else, I actually like that he's struggling now, because maybe it's just going to flip on a dime once they get to the postseason and he's going to get back to form. And if that's the case, we're talking about a College World Series team. We really are, because we were not even close to that 2 weeks ago. But you see the strategy on the mound. They know what they have in their starters, and you're getting a lot from Miles Patton as well. He didn't have his best game because he did allow 4 runs, but at the same time, could have been worse, right? He gave you valuable innings. And if you're getting that from your starters, you have a weapon like Weston Moss and Cade McCoy. Yeah, got a lot of my names in my head. Again, excellent. That is a freshman. That is somebody who kind of saved you in a couple innings in game 2. Obviously, they didn't win the game. But if you're getting that as well, combined with the guys you have in your batting lineup, why can't A&M make a run? I'm going to be honest. Like, you just need to get to the postseason. That's all. And look, Missouri, I think I just did the standings today. I think they're 0-24 in SEC.
They have not won a game.
They haven't won a game. I don't know if I've seen an SEC team do that in a couple of years. I remember when Ole Miss, who actually won the College World Series that year, was very bad in SEC play. This is historically bad. I'm going to be honest. If A&M even loses a game in this series, it's embarrassing. I think you should just dominate these guys. And you know that you should be scoring a lot of runs on that pitching staff, which is going to set you up in a good position going to the postseason. Yeah,
so looking forward for this weekend against Missouri, and it sucks that we didn't get the game against Houston today, but Missouri this weekend. I really think this is the series where you really want to see the bats get hot. Like, it's almost a must see for this team to start getting these bats hot and see what you actually are able to do with, frankly, like you really do want to see the Laviolette flip on its head. You want to see that, especially now that he's leading off. And then Caden Sorrell, I want to go back to. I mean, he was stellar, but you really don't want to see a loss against any of at all in these games against Missouri. I have a couple of words jumbled in my mouth, but because going off from the Missouri hopeful wins, right? We want to see those wins. Going into Georgia, who is a tough, very, very tough SEC team to play against. I mean, we saw it last year. They were tough to play against, and they kind of have used that from previous years going into this one as well. I mean, people have seen, hey, projected 2 seed, projected 3 seed, finally off of the bubble, we'll say, of those teams. But you really do want to see these bats get hot going into this weekend and then further on, because it'll just show this team, okay, our pitching, we know exactly what we're getting with it now. We love the lineups that we have. We know exactly what we're getting from that. Let's see what we can get off of these bats.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I mean. You look at, I think, the entire problem this season, because we all knew, and yes, look, we can have our discussions with Caleb Longley, their hitting coach, if he could return next season, if he's the reason why they're so inconsistent. But look, I'm going to be honest. When it comes to momentum in the postseason, I just kind of hate how they kind of compare and contrast and say, look, if you're playing this well now, it's probably going to continue because hitting is hitting. And if you're hitting now, you're probably going to hit later. That's not true. We have seen that with every team this season. We saw that with LSU this weekend. They were as bad as A&M was. Okay, and to be honest, they've been one of the better offensive teams. They're nearly a 40-win team this season, like Arkansas is, who outside of one game on the road against Arkansas, who I think A&M's the only SC team to beat them at home and win a series at home this season.
Yep.
I'm going to be honest, they pretty much dominated them on the mound. And you did that with a rotation now that outside of your starters in Prager, Lampkin, and Patton, you've got guys like Caden Wilson. Obviously, Weston Moss is your main reliever. But Caden Wilson has played very well. He's been very reliable. Obviously, Caden McCoy, who's a freshman, who is giving you valuable innings, he's kind of getting that feel for coming to ugly situations and getting him out of them. I think really his only bad pitch this season so far was the home run he allowed against Texas. I'm going to be honest, that stuff happens. But you've kind of solidified that bench of knowing I can rely on these guys enough, right? They're not like total disasters like we saw with a couple of the younger fresh corn, for example, who just isn't ready, right? He's not ready to be relied on. But again, that was the biggest problem for A&M this season. We knew what they had in terms of their offense. It's just you got to put it together consistently. And then if you can do that, like you said, if you can explode against Missouri and then you can make a dent against Georgia and look the part, you're already in. You're in the tournament.
You're in it. Yeah.
You're in, and you're probably going to get, I think D1 Baseball's latest projection was in the Arizona regional, which I'm going to be honest, if I was any of those teams in that, and I think Cal Poly, who actually beat A&M at the beginning of the season, look, I don't want to play A&M. Like I said, they're going to put them in a regional where no team there wants to play the Aggies. Like
exactly.
And that's going to be teams like Mississippi State, Kentucky, if they can get in. Nobody wants to play these teams because they're SEC teams who were in the best conference where everybody has eaten each other alive all season outside of Texas. But again, those Longhorns, who we were hurt here in national championship, looked absolutely disgusting against Arkansas, who dominated them in every aspect. And I'm going to be honest, I was one of the people who said, look, I don't know if Texas is going to be a national champion this year, because I'm going to be honest, I've seen a lot of teams do what they've done and not look the part in the postseason and kind of, I'm not going to say the term I was going to say. This is a family show, but
we're PG here. We're PG.
Yeah, look, whatever. But I respect them. They beat A&M, but I think they kind of put all their marbles into that series and really just all the passion and everything. And then you lay something out like that against Arkansas. That's baseball. That's my point.
It is baseball. And I will say this year, I've seen a lot of teams over their, conference plays. I've seen a lot of teams already look the part where they want to contend for the College World Series. And honestly, I do think this year there were probably more teams than there were last year who were actual contenders for it. But maybe that's just me. But from what I've seen so far, I mean, the Arkansas, even LSU that we just played. I mean, you want to see those type of teams in the College World Series, regardless of if your team's in it or not. I just think I've seen a lot more teams this year look the part rather than just say that they're the part, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. It's about entertainment at the end of the day. Like, you're rooting for your team, you want your team to go far, but at the same time, it's a product. You want the best teams in there, and I think that's why the baseball standings, the SEC baseball standings, are kind of hilarious because A&M is third to last with the bottom dwellers, and then you got Missouri just looking ugly as all get out down there. But again, they're third to last. They're 14th out of 16 teams, but they're most likely going to the NCAA tournament because
exactly
the records are what they are. Teams get hot late or they're hot early, and then they kind of crop the bed late. It's just how it is. And then if they can get in, that's all that matters. The same as the basketball tournament. Get in, see what happens. We're gonna end the show with everybody's favorite topic, which is college football predictions. We were discussing before the show. I wrote an article on Sunday night that was released on Monday, almost 2,000 words, predicting every record, every loss, every win for all 16 SEC teams. I've already seen podcasts and others talk about it and dissect it, and Texas fans get really, really angry and look at it because I had them losing 2 games. How dare me? Oh my God. Anyways, we're going to focus on A&M, who I picked to go 9-3, so 6-2 in the SEC. One of the outside losses, I did pick Notre Dame as a loss. And the 2 SEC games I picked as a loss for Aggies was Florida at home and LSU on the road. Obviously, LSU is not a crazy pick. They have not won in Baton Rouge since I believe I was born in 1994. I believe that was the season.
Yep.
And just the way, kind of the revenge of how A&M beat them last season. Obviously, Garrett Nussmeier is one of the top signal callers in the country. He's going to have a pretty decent wide receiver staff around him. I think that LSU can end up being one of the better passing offenses next season. And I personally, again, I picked them to go 9-3. I'm not one of those pessimists who are like 7-5, 8-4 again, it never stops, because I do believe, and we've talked about on the show, that because of how their roster is constructed, because of guys like Lyle Hemphill coming in to help fix various problems on defense, specifically technical issues like tackling and coverage, and especially press man in the secondary and stuff like that, and eye discipline with the safeties and all that kind of stuff. And why I'm focusing on defense is because I believe that Texas A&M's offense is going to find its groove in the middle of SEC play. And some people did criticize me for picking Florida as the loss because A&M obviously beat Florida on the road, one of the toughest environments, with Marcel Reed when he never started a game, and he did it on the ground, just completely destroyed them with the running game with LeVeon Moss, who obviously we're gonna end that with his announcement via social media. But I don't know if A&M's identity is going to be completely that. I think it's going to be something close to that. But I believe that the way they're going is that Marcel Reed is going to take that next step. I personally believe that. As a passer, I think the system is going to work for him. And I specifically believe that the wide receivers we discussed, I believe last week, guys like Isaiah Williams, Ashton Bethel-Roman, and obviously Terry Bussey, Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, all kind of shorter but versatile, faster, quick route runners, guys who are perfect in this system, married with their tight end rotation, which now includes Amari Niblack, who's one of the best receiving tight ends who can really stretch the field. We've seen this is he just has more weapons at his disposal. He has an O-line in front of him, which is veteran, who should really be one of the best in the conference. I know things happen and guys digress or injuries happen, etc. But right now on paper and with the 6 O-line commitments they have or signees they have in the 25 class, they've got depth. They have the roster to win 9 games this season. I will say that. If they win over that, or if they do win 9 games, I will be somewhat surprised because, look, again, it's SEC play. Close losses happen. Injuries happen, like you said. When you lose your identity and you lose specific players, it completely changes the season, as we saw with LeVeon Moss when he was injured against South Carolina. They finished 1-4 because they just didn't have that running identity, and they had to force Marcel Reed to pass. But I think that, and I'll let you get into this in a second, but I do believe that this offseason and spring football was all predicated around getting Marcel Reed comfortable as a passer so that when he does need to be relied on, when there's stuff in the run, when things aren't going great, we need to rely on you to move the ball down the field through the air.
Yeah, and I think you went with a more realistic approach to it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the loss at Notre Dame, Florida at home is going to be a tough one for the Aggies they walked into Florida last year and really put a belt to something, we'll say. But and if the LSU loss that you're projecting is like, hey, you're going into Baton Rouge. LSU just retooled a whole bunch of their offense, a whole bunch of their defense. And I actually really do like LSU's team this year. And just looking at them, I think that you took a very realistic approach with it. Now, the wins you do have, like the statement wins is what I'm looking at. And that would mean you put a statement win against a potentially really good South Carolina team at home. You put a statement win at the end of the season against Texas. And I think that at their home, and I think when you project the 10-2 Texas team is rolling into that, I think Texas will have won about 4 in a row at that point, because you do have them projected to losing to Florida as well as their other loss.
So that's the thing. I know the Florida losses to some are very surprising. I'm going to be honest. I'm much higher in Florida than a lot of people. I've been watching DJ Lagway through his entire high school career. I knew from the start that this kid was going to be a superstar, and I think that they've done a pretty good job at giving him the team around him to take that next step this season. And I think that he's one of those confident signal callers. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and he's obviously got elite arm talent. And when he gets hot, Florida's going to score a lot of points. In my opinion.
He has the intangibles, man.
Yeah, and there was a lot of games in this schedule where you can – and South Carolina's the thing. I saw people discussing that, okay, no, I think we're going to lose South Carolina. I understand that. But I picked A&M to beat them specifically because they are at home. There is some revenge tied to that, the way they just blew them out on the road last season. Obviously, losing LeVeon Moss in that game. I think LeVeon Moss, if he faces him, is going to be very, very motivated at that game. And I think that South Carolina is very overhyped in a way. I think that they're talking about it because we see this every season with a quarterback that has like Cam Newton-like size. Lenore Sellers is going to be very, very good. And I think that, he could end up being like a first-round draft pick in the future because he's got big size. He's got a big arm, right? He needs to be a little more accurate. He needs to be better with his eyes. He needs to take, see the field better, but he's got all his returning wide receivers. And on defense, they have Dylan Stewart, who is one of the best edge rushers I've seen in a while, who's obviously going into his sophomore season. And, just signed that big NIL deal and is probably going to be a double-digit sack guy and just a terror off the edge. So going against Trey Zoom, that's probably a good matchup because I think Zoom's faced every, elite pass rusher known to man since his career started in the SEC. But yeah, that was kind of a wild card one. I had to think a while about that when I was filling. That's why it took so long to write, because I really had to kind of weigh the pros and the cons of, well, are they a bad matchup? I don't know, because I think defensively last season even, and again, this is going to be a different defense, a different defensive line, different players, different mentalities, a little bit of a different scheme, being that Bateman isn't calling the plays anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think Mike Elko is going to have a plan to keep Lenore Sellers in the pocket, to not allow him to just kill them on the ground because he's He's sneaky athletic, and again, his size, when he's coming at you, it's like a freight train coming at you. And if you're a safety or a corner, you're going to get run over, right? Prevent that, keep him on the ground, stop the run, make him pass every down, play tight coverage. And, and again, South Carolina's secondary next season should be okay, but I'm projecting this based on Marcel Reed's progression, right?
Right. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I looked at it, is that if he has found his groove, like I said, with Lagway, and he's confident, and Casey Concepcion has turned into that number one option who can really tear up defenses and get you those chunk gains, why can't A&M beat them, right?
Exactly.
If they're struggling, and South Carolina is one of the best teams, and their identity is what it was last season, but even better, then yeah, it could be a loss. And look, I'll say this. When I picked them to beat Texas, I didn't just pick them to beat Texas because it's Aggies Wire and we're trying to throw dirt on it. I picked them to beat Texas because I don't know who Texas is yet. And me and Billy Lucci are probably on an island alone of saying, look, I'm not all bought in yet on Texas. Like, they've got a lot of new pieces. I think their defense is going to be great because I know Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill very well, and I know how good they are. And I know that they are first-round draft picks, and they are going to be menaces for any offensive line and quarterback that has to face them. And I know, again, I know what Arch Manning is for the most part. If he turns out to be that superstar they make him to be, being that, look, he played against a bunch of no-name teams last year. He started some games, and he beat Mississippi State, who, again, Mississippi State did not win a game in SEC play, but I'm not going to put a lot of insurance in him just coming out and being the Heisman favorite. And I don't think he is. And I've seen a lot of national analysts kind of be realistic. I remember I was reading a CBS Sports rankings of the best player, and who wasn't number one? Arch Manning. I think he was number 20 something, because, there are other players in college football who are just better right now because they played a lot of games. And this is just kind of a wild card of no. Do I think he's going to end up living up to his potential? Yeah, probably. I'm going to be honest. He's got Steve Sarkisian as his head coach and his play caller. That's probably a given. I don't think this kid's going to struggle really, but there are going to be games. And if A&M's defense, especially their pass rush, which you believe is going to be very good next season, just because of the depth they have at edge, and guys like Dayon Hayes, even, who, has been around the block, but has a ton of potential and played very well during the spring game. Tyler Onienum is another guy who was just wrecking that old line. They've got pieces, and I even saw the fan base going, you know what, our D-line is going to be pretty good. If that all comes to fruition, it's a rivalry game. Again, A&M got embarrassed last season at Kyle Field. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. Will Lee's, interception return was the only points they got. They're going to be pissed. And if they have everything on the line to make the college football playoffs by beating Texas, do you really think they're not going to come out and play their best football? I don't. That's why I picked it. So I can put a lot of, backing of my pick there. It's not just a pick of going, they're going to beat Texas. Woohoo. They haven't done it in a while. And, Texas is going to have the upper hand because they're probably going to be ranked higher. They might not lose a game. I picked them to lose 2. I picked them to lose to Florida because stuff happens in the SEC. And I think Florida is one of those teams who's going to upset both Texas teams and kind of go, yeah, look at us. And probably end the season, I don't know what I picked them. I think it was like 8-4 or something. But look, that's football. It happens. You lose games. You get shocked. Texas didn't lose a game last season outside of, this is Georgia, right? I think that was their only loss.
They lost to Georgia in the regular season. Georgia beat them again.
And then Georgia beat them in the playoffs, yeah. And then they lost to Ohio State, obviously. But look, they had a fantastic season last year. They had a loaded team. But the reason why I think that they will incur some losses is because they lost a ton of veteran pieces, especially on the O-line. They lost their left tackle. They've lost, I think it was a right tackle. They've lost, guys like Vernon Broughton, who is, one of the best run defenders and just a great interior guy. You're losing a ton of talent there. Do they have the talent to make up for it? Probably, yeah, right? Yeah. But until we see it, kind of like A&M, and I'll let you finish here.
Yeah, you're good.
We just got to see, we got to see it happen. We got to see with A&M, I'm not doing a lot of, and when we do these season predictions, these are very new based on what we saw in the spring. but I'm not good. And why we do them now is because I'm not going to get a ton of information going into the summer. I'm going to get SEC media days with Mike Elko talking about the team and the progress stuff we saw during spring. But outside of that, look, taking our shot now. This is what's on their roster. They may add a couple pieces, but this is what I think is going to happen. And Texas fans can't be mad because I still think they're going to make the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Fine. But
I mean, you have them projected to beat Ohio State. You have them projected to beat Georgia. So, and you have Georgia super, super high. That's their only loss you have.
I do because I do believe that Arch Manning and I cannot remember the running back's name. Quintarian
Wisener.
Quintarian Wise, yeah.
We'll have CJ Baxter back as well.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent running back room. They're going to have a good run game. I think that O-line's probably going to be pretty good. But I think Arch Manning is going to have those games where he's just balling out. And everybody's, and it's almost like he's doing that to make every national analyst feel good. Like, I knew he could do it. And they're going to win games that you thought that are going to be their toughest. And they're going to lose a couple games where it's like, you should have won that game. Right?
Yeah, and I think to turn it kind of back towards what the A&M fans are kind of looking for this season due to your projections, it is an up and down season for them. Yeah. But they are incrementally, and I think this is Mike Elko's thing, of we are getting better because we have supported the culture here. We know who we are is what his big thing is. And incrementally getting better as people, as players, that's his entire thing. So going 2-1 in the first 3 games, and then going 5-3 in the first 8 games, but then having a 4-game win streak right there at the end. I think Texas will probably have going into that last game, will have a 6-game win streak according to your projections. That's going to be a big, big thing. And if what you think is true, where Marcel Reed does take that next step, which I know A&M fans are trying to say that's what we're expecting him to do. You're going to see Casey Concepcion do this. You're going to see Mario Craver. You're going to see a bunch more of offensive progression, because last year you didn't see an offensive touchdown. I mean, we saw how big that Willie pick 6 was and what kind of momentum A&M wanted from that. You just couldn't get over the hump for that one.
Oh, yeah. No offense to Quinn Ewers, but Texas probably should have won by more. There were opportunities there, just bad plays, bad throws, and kept A&M in the game. They played very poorly. You can say that A&M had their moments defensively, but I'm going to be honest, they weren't ready for that game. And I think Mike Early knows that. I think that Mike Early, Jesus, I'm sorry. Mike Elko knows.
I was going to let it slide.
It's been an hour. It's been a long day. I think that he knows, specifically looking back at how they finished, the mentality of that. We cannot have that mentality in November, especially in October, when the core of that SEC schedule starts. We have to be on a win streak at the end of the season to get any respect and have a chance to make it to the postseason, because the way we finished not only hurt our fan base, but it hurt the overall confidence from everybody who views A&M as a potential contender. It was like, it's kind of like the ranking. I remember there's a coaching ranking from USA Today, and Mike Elko was number 9, right? And a lot of that you look at is like, well, that makes sense because it's going in his 2nd season. He's got a lot of guys, but guys like Shane Beamer were ahead of him. And I want to be honest, if you're A&M, it's like Shane Beamer's ahead of us. Like I get South Carolina's good now, but they really weren't that great before, and he's a better coach. And so if you want to prove them wrong, have a win streak at the end of the season. Win those games that you weren't supposed to, or you are supposed to, those big ones like the South Carolina, and yes, I included them to beat South Carolina, but that looks like one of the toughest games on their schedule. And I will say that one of the reasons I did pick Texas to beat Ohio State is I think that's kind of a momentum thing. I think that Ohio State's going to be a brand new team essentially. And I think that we always see these early season upsets and teams that are coming off playoff success. And sometimes the former champion lays an egg early, and then it gives every college football writer something to write about for the next 2 weeks. And so that's really why I did that. But overall, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I take a lot of time looking at these. I'm going to be wrong on 50% of them, but I do think that when you look at the entire 16 every team schedule, you look from even Kentucky to Vanderbilt, two teams that are going to be very fun to watch. There's going to be a lot of games where I think Kentucky's probably going to win. Like I say, I think it was 4-8, but it's going to be a fun season because he had Zach Calzada.
I mean, Zach Calzada is back in the SEC. Look at that.
Credit to Calzada, who, obviously is an Aggie legend here. But he had like 35 touchdowns last season with the Incarnate Word, like 3,700 yards or something through the air. I'm like, that dude, like if he can do anything like that at Kentucky, I mean, their offense isn't going to be that great, but if he can make things happen, you're going to want to watch it. So I think,
exactly.
Yes, I did that for predictions, but at the same time, just know there's going to be a lot of chaos, I think, next season, because I think a lot of teams are more equal than some people even know. And I still think that Georgia and Texas are the cream of the crop right now. You're going to have teams like Alabama, who Kalen Board is going to turn them into a very good offensive team. Obviously, you have a guy like Ryan Williams as your wide receiver. Really, anybody can throw him. But overall, it's going to be exciting. And I think for A&M fans, I think that what you can take away from that is that it's not overconfidence anymore. That was a realistic prediction. I don't do overconfident predictions. I predicted them last season to go 8-4, I believe, and they went 8-5. So there you go. But I just believe that it's finally the time. He's constructed the roster the way he has. He has a very good 25 signing class, and the transfer portal additions were extremely important in helping this team have an identity again. Because you actually now it's not just, and we're actually going to get to this last. LeVeon Moss, and I'm starting running back, obviously went on social media, actually did an article about it, interesting enough, the day before. Pro Football Focus had said, if Le'Veon Moss is 100%, he's probably going to be a riser, probably the best back in the 2026 NFL draft. And credit to Le'Veon Moss, who does not speak a lot in the offseason. He pretty much just tweeted out, I'm 100%, I'm going to be ready. And for every A&M fan, and a lot of them, I hope they hear this or saw that, who were questioning the running back room and they didn't think anybody was healthy and they didn't think Le'Veon Moss was ready to go. Well, you heard it from the man himself. He's healthy. They kept him out because why play him in the spring? That's pointless. I think Amari Daniels is going to be healed up pretty well, and I think that you're going to enter the season with a healthy Le'Veon Moss, a healthy Reuben Owens, and a healthy Amari Daniels, and even E.J. Smith is there, and you got two freshman backs. I think this running back room is going to be one of the reasons they can sustain winning at the end of the season, because you get an identity on the ground, and you do what you did essentially against like Florida last season, and really most of the teams you played, until Marcel Reed had to drop back almost every play.
Yeah.
You do that, you get some good passing, you get a very cohesive offense going, you make plays through the air, you're going to have a balanced offense, and that's what gets you to 9 wins. That's what I've seen every year from good A&M teams. You go back to Kellen Mond, and I always think about that season, the 2020 season. You play like that, you could win 10 games. That's how I look at it. It's balanced football. Make the throws when you have to, run the ball well, be smart in the pocket, don't take dumb sacks. And if you have a good O-line, that's really the nucleus of it all.
Yeah, I mean, cohesion is it, and we'll wrap up with this. But cohesion is the name of the game for this A&M football team in 2025. Le'Veon Moss, who I have rated as a top 3 SEC running back, you can kind of mismatch or who you want at number 1 and 2. I will say Jaden Odd is probably in there for me. But the running back room, you just want the consistency and the cohesion that it can work into the offense to where you don't necessarily have to do 60% runs like you did this past year. You really do want to see that progression from Marcel Reed as a passer. And I think that if you can support a ground game with a healthy Le'Veon Moss, with a fully healthy Reuben Owens, Amari Daniels, and all your other key contributors, I think that's what really takes A&M to that realistic 9-3 and that next level that you predicted. So for all of the fans that are listening in, make sure you go and check out Cameron's article he wrote on Aggie's Wire on all of his SEC predictions. I think you'll find it a very interesting read and a realistic approach to really all of the teams that are on there. I know I saw, if you're a South Carolina fan, you're really going to want to read it. I think you'll be very optimistic about it.
Yeah, very high on them overall. But I'll say this. You made a great point there. The one game, and actually I was thinking about this game when writing it, Texas A&M's win against Arkansas last year. You look at that game and you look at the throws and the lack of playmakers that Marcel Reed had in the passing game, but especially the missed throws. You eliminate those missed throws. You give him better receiving options, and you have LeVeon Moss and others running the ball like that. You're going to beat a lot of SEC teams that way, a lot of SEC teams, and they're going to be pissed off at the end of the day because when you play football like that, it's very hard to beat, and especially when you are in rhythm and you are confident and the wins start rolling up. That's what we saw. But again, it was hard to know that last season because of all the drama with Connor Wegman and with Marcel Reed's future and should Connor start, et cetera. That's not a problem anymore. I don't want to hear about Miles O'Neill yet. I really don't, because Miles O'Neill is going to be a good quarterback one day, and he could be the backup entering the season. But this is Marcel Reed's job, and he's the future of this team for now. So he's got to prove it, and it's going to be a fun season. We're going to be doing a lot of previews, and obviously this is just kind of the first of it. But I don't think my opinion will change until the season starts, because I think the ceiling is probably 9-3. I think you could say the floor is 8-4, and that's usually the case. Like, look, that's just the SEC, right? It's just sometimes you have seasons like that where it just doesn't go your way. You win enough games, but Mike O's got a lot of pressure on him, and he's got pressure from the fan base. He's got pressure from the front office. He's got pressure from everybody because football's number one, and it's always going to be number one. And this fan base is too good and too dedicated not to have a really good season under a head coach who they respect.
Exactly.
We're gone. We're not in the Jimbo Fisher era anymore, where it was, it's just a different tone, right? It's somebody who's really embraced A&M. We talked about Bucky McMillan. These guys are embracing the program. And I'm going to be honest, the way that Elko has gone through the offseason, this guy wants to win for this university.
Exactly.
And he's done everything he can to make that happen. We're going to end here. Man, I really appreciate being back on here, and hopefully we have you back on every week if that's possible. We'll see what happens there. But obviously follow Cannon at Cannon Torres on X. You can follow me at Cameron Honesty on X. Obviously, as Cannon referenced, my article that is up there, that's going to be up there forever now, is basically on Aggies Wire, predicting all 16 SEC teams record for 2025. Fun to read for all teams. You can hate it, you can love it, either way. But that's it for our 6th episode of Texas A&M Aggies Live. Make sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, this is going to be on YouTube after we're finished here, and you're going to have every section cut up. So if you missed anything we talked about the basketball, the new commits, the baseball season, and obviously finishing the show talking about Texas A&M's 25 football season. That's all going to be there for you by the end of the week. All right, guys. As always, I'll see you next time, and kick 'em as usual.